This morning, it is the hottest congressional race in Texas right now.
In New York, Gill's bank did business in communist China.
Tens of millions of dollars dumped into Congressional District 26. But why is it so competitive? Vinny Minchillo produces Republican campaign ads and is bringing some insight. Plus, a potential political solution to the recent widespread cell phone outage. Congressman Tony Gonzalez with a plan to call up digital reservists across the state. The final week of early voting, and a lot is on the line Super Tuesday. School vouchers in Texas, the direction of the Republican Party. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick takes our questions. And could Colin Allred win the Democratic nomination for Senate without a runoff? What a new poll shows.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning, less than 10 days away now from Super Tuesday. Here are the political headlines happening. New numbers out right now show that Texas taxpayers have spent a lot of money to bus migrants across the country. The price tag so far, $148 million. KUT in Austin is reporting this new figure. So far, 102,000 migrants have hitched a ride on Texas taxpayers' dime. They were riding farther into the U.S. We did the math on this. Governor Abbott's program cost Texas taxpayers more than $1,400 for each of those bus tickets. Well, state leaders refuse to tell us, though, exactly how much it's going to cost for a border base along the Rio Grande. Governor Abbott said it would be 80 acres along the Rio Grande there in Eagle Pass, and it would reduce how much that taxpayers are paying right now to put guardsmen in local hotels there. But what is the price tag? No one is saying, and some lawmakers are questioning why Abbott is doing this without approval from the legislature. And a new poll shows some interesting insight about what to expect on Super Tuesday. The Texas Politics Project at the University of Texas in Austin did this survey. 64% of Republican primary voters said the border is their top concern. 2% said their concern was school vouchers, which is what Governor Abbott is campaigning hard on here. The same UT poll shows Congressman Colin Allred with a 52% support among 8 competitors, suggesting he could win the Democratic nomination for Senate without a runoff. You know, this morning, the final week of early voting, it ends on Friday, and a lot is on the line in this election. School vouchers in Texas, and more broadly, the direction of the Republican Party in this state. Our first guest, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, not running for re-election, but heavily involved in what happens on Super Tuesday. Governor, welcome back to the program here. A lot is on the line March 5th. You know that very well here. Do you expect enough Republican House seats are going to flip to get school vouchers passed next session?
So 5 of the people who voted against school vouchers retired, interestingly enough. They cast the no vote to kill the vouchers on the way out the door. And the 5 people running in those seats, there's 3 or 4 in each race, all of them are running on school choice. So whoever wins, that's 5 votes we pick up. We believe that there will be enough turnover of other seats or enough convincing of people that they should vote for school choice. Let's say a few House members, Jason, survive, and some will. There'll be surprises on both sides. But maybe if they're in a close election, maybe they'll realize for the first time people are paying attention. And maybe that will change their behavior of how they vote. Because for the most part, people back home don't know how they vote. And what Greg Abbott and I and others are doing this session, in this cycle rather, is we're just letting people know how their people are voting. They can say one thing back in the district, and then they go down in there and give the Democrats control. And we want to end that.
Governor, if Speaker Phelan does win re-election, do you think that you can find common ground with him next session to get some of these issues passed?
Well, Governor Abbott couldn't find common ground on school choice. We couldn't find common ground until the very last moment on the $100,000 homestead exemption. We couldn't find common ground on strong border security bills that he tried to kill the strong bill that we finally did pass over his objection when other members in the House said, we got to pass this bill. That's the one that's going to the Supreme Court to give us power to arrest and send back people across the border. So it bottomed out this session, Jason. And so look, parties go through this. We'll go through this. At the end of the day, whoever wins, and there'll be some runoffs, so some of these won't be decided until May. Whoever wins will all come together. and will represent the people of Texas. But Governor Abbott, and I'm not speaking for him, but I think his actions speak loudly, and myself are elected. We got elected with almost 800,000, 900,000 million vote majority last time, the last election. We have an obligation to do what we said we were going to do. And if Dade Phelan and some members in the House are stopping that, a dozen out of 85, then we're going to fight for the people of Texas who elected us. I think that's what they want us to do. We'll work out everything after it's all over.
On this issue, I want to ask you about some chatter I've heard from some
Yes.
lawmakers. I'm curious what
Yes.
you think about this. They're curious come January whether you would block legislation from Republicans who supported the Attorney General's impeachment. Should those Republicans
Of course
in
not.
the,
Look,
in the House
Jason,
be concerned about this?
Jason, of course not. We've never done that in the Senate. They play that game in the House, I can assure you. We don't play that game in the Senate. If a House member has a good bill and it's good for the people of Texas, we're going to pass it and the governor's going to sign it. There's no, oh, we're going to kill those bills. That doesn't happen on our side, because my number one job as lieutenant governor and as president of the Senate, you know, I'm in control of that legislation, what flows, what passes. Our job is to pass legislation that the people of Texas watching right now expect us to pass, who voted for us, and at the same time represent all Texans. You know, our budget, I'll give you an example, Jason. We passed a budget last session 31-0. That's getting the most far left Democrat and the most far right
Sure.
Republican together. 98% of the bills we pass in the Texas Senate pass with bipartisan support.
Last question. Election night, what specifically are you watching for in the state? Which races?
Well, there's about 30 or 40.
I know, but I'm sure you have a couple that you're just really eyeballing.
Well, look, I'm going to be looking at the Barry Warnick race in against Morgan Meyer.
Dallas.
I'll be looking at that race. Yeah, everyone thought Morgan would win that, 80-20. I don't think that's going to happen. I'll be looking, of course, at the speaker's race. Going to be looking at all of the races where incumbents killed school choice. Again, there were 13 out of 85. I mean, there were 21 votes, but we needed 13 more. 13 Republicans killed school choice that half of Democrat families want, 2/3 of independents want, and 80% of Republican families want for their children. Just the right, Jason. I already gave you the numbers. 50,000 to 5.5 million, 500 million compared to 39 billion. It's not undermining public education. It's giving parents the right to look out for their children for what they think is best. And so I'm looking at all those races.
Governor, we always appreciate the time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jason.
All right, let's bring in the roundtable now to discuss the politics of this. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Ashley Godot is with us. She is the managing editor of political content at KVUE in Austin. And of course, Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Bud, let's start with you. This is a bruising Republican primary here, infighting like we've never really seen before.
Well, when the lieutenant governor says that if the House members win, at least he will have gotten across the message to the people in the district. If they win, it means the people in their district love them and want to keep them. They'll be stronger than ever before. And that's what happens. You see the House members who aren't in touch with their district, who aren't at the civic clubs, who aren't at the chamber, who aren't getting out and meeting the people, they get beat by some of these mailer wild accusation campaigns. But the House members who really know their districts and are close to the people go back over and over. The school people, the business people will reelect them.
Mm-hmm. Ashley, what are you seeing, thinking, hearing on this here too? Is Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Ken Paxton, are they going to get enough people to actually flip school vouchers and get that passed come January?
I think they will be able to flip certainly a few seats, but I do not think it's going to be clean sweeps across the board like, some might think or hope that it's going to be. I think the fact that former President Donald Trump is now also getting involved and endorsing some of these candidates that Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has endorsed is certainly interesting. And they're going to really put to the test just how much their base is and just how much people want to support what they see as those rural values versus the governor and what he sees as what's best for Texas.
Bernadine?
I don't think that there's going to be a clean sweep either. And it's interesting that the lieutenant governor says that they were elected and they should hold these state representatives accountable. But he misses the point that these representatives were elected in these districts, and they are accountable to their constituents, and obviously their constituents don't want the vouchers, or they're voting the way that their constituents want them to vote. Yeah. And it's going to be interesting, and quickly, I think that the lieutenant governor is sort of lessening and bringing down expectation, because they realize that they're not going to get a sweep.
And we shall see what happens come 9 days from now, a week from Tuesday. Here's what's coming up next. Coming up here, the state's new military base on the border. It's in Congressman Tony Gonzalez's district. He's with us from San Antonio in just a moment. Plus, the hottest congressional race in Texas right now. Why are Republicans fighting so hard to replace Michael Burgess? Vinny Manchillo produces political ads and explains what's happening when Inside Texas Politics returns. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. You've likely been bombarded with political text messages, TV ads, and candidate mailers the last few weeks. But the Republican race for a congressional seat in North Texas is the hottest one in the state right now. This is the seat that Michael Burgess is vacating, District 26. Vinny Manchillo produces political ads for Republican candidates, and he is watching this one closely. Vinny, welcome back to the program here. 11 candidates running for Congress in Congressional District 26 in North Texas here. Well, why so much interest in this race? It's the one that Burgess is leaving.
Yeah, hey, look, open congressional seats don't come open, very, very often. So, this is a great opportunity. But yeah, 11 candidates, you need a program, and the money that has flown into this race, it's mind-boggling, really is, and more coming.
Put that in perspective for us. How big of a deal is this? Because we see in North Texas here a lot of ads already on TV, a lot of mailers and mailboxes.
Right. So we've got you've got the 11 candidates, probably the top 3 who are on TV right now. I've got my cheat sheet here because there's so many candidates I can't keep them. But we've got Brandon Gill, John Huffman, and then Doug Robinson is also on TV. But not only are they on TV, but third parties are pouring the money in. I mean, millions of dollars coming into this race. It's a really hot race, kind of a proxy war, I guess, between some of the MAGA type Republicans and maybe the somewhat less conservative Republicans.
Who wins out in the end?
This almost certainly goes to a runoff, which, I'm a little surprised at the money coming in right now. So everybody wants to get one of those top 2 slots to transfer to the runoff. I think it's Brandon Gill and John Huffman, but we still got a ways to go.
The other big race we're all watching across the state's the Democratic race for U.S. Senate. Colin Allred clearly has way more money than all the other Democrats who are running against him. Right. Does that mean he can avoid a runoff, though, Vinny?
Well, I think he's got to, and he is spending a lot of money. He is spending millions and millions of dollars against, no disrespect to Roland Gutierrez from downstate, but he's kind of a backbencher. Allred should really be cruising to victory here. So the question is Allred spending all this money just to pump up his name ID because we're all thinking about politics right now, or is he really in trouble? Nobody's issued any polls. So, you have to wonder what's really going on in the Allred campaign.
What do you think's going on?
You know what? I feel like he's spending money to be opportunistic. I mean, his brand is sort of blah. People know him in Dallas, but outside of Dallas, people really don't know him. So I think he's being opportunistic, trying to raise his name ID. I don't really think Gutierrez is going to get within double digits of him, to be honest.
We're obviously going to get a break this spring and this summer after the March 5th primary and after any runoffs here. But do you expect we're going to see as much activity in November?
Certainly not. There's really only one big race we're only going to be watching in Texas when we get to the general, and that's going to be the Allred. We assume he's going to win the primary, Allred versus Cruz, and we'll see plenty of that. But that's really just about the only thing that's on the menu for us. And the challenge for that campaign is, will we assume it'll be Trump versus Biden in the presidential election. Will they suck all the oxygen out of the room? Will Cruz and Allred actually have to fight for attention? So it should be interesting to watch that.
That was Vinny Manchillo there. A software upgrade at Dallas-based AT&T took down part of the cellular network last Thursday. It wasn't a cyber attack, but Congressman Tony Gonzalez says it is still a situation to prepare for. He represents San Antonio in a wide swath of the Texas border with Mexico. Congressman, welcome back to the program here. You're calling on Congress to pass your bill, the National Digital Reserve Corps Act. Tell us exactly what this would do and where it stands.
Jason, thank you again for having me on. I'm a retired Navy Master Chief cryptologist. I spent my whole life working in this space. And what the bill does is pretty simple. It's the National Digital Reserve Corps. And when the power goes out, or in this case, cell coverage, water, something to deal with your infrastructure, who is going to turn the power back on? Well, my bill essentially says we already have that expertise in our communities. Let's empower them in a federal capacity for a limited amount of time, because who's going to determine who gets their lights turned on first? Does Dallas go before Houston? Does San Antonio go before Dallas? Where does Fort Worth fill in the deal? Where's Austin? What if you're a little old Uvalde? So the premise behind the bill is we already have talent in our local communities. Let's have an ability that federalizes them for a short duration to help turn the lights back on.
So would this deputize essentially like the IT teams at these different companies and different cities?
So let's say I'm an IT professional for a large company pick your city, right?
Yeah.
Fort Worth. And let's say I want to serve my country, but let's say I don't want to join the Marines and do 100 push-ups. Well, this is your way where you can join your country as a reservist, a digital reservist, and then you can enter that way if and when your country needs your help. I think this is the future of combat. It's already here, and we're already seeing it.
Congressman, let me switch gears here. Governor Abbott announced that the state of Texas is going to build a permanent military base in Eagle Pass along the Rio Grande there for the National Guard. First reaction to that, is this a good idea?
The state is essentially filling the federal government's role because the federal government is void. And here as Texans, we're basically getting taxed twice to have something done. And so I want this to end. The people in my district, the people in Texas, we've had enough. We're tired. We've had enough, and we want this to end. And I'm encouraged to see President Biden start to think through some of these things. This is what I've advocated for, Jason, and I think you're going to hear more of this on the congressional level. I've advocated for deportation flights, raising credible fear standards, giving money to ICE, and then surging immigration judges to the border. Those are some real, tangible solutions that I think can get bipartisan support.
And just to make sure I'm clear on this, you do support the governor's move to open this forward operating base?
I do support the governor's move to bring all the resources it can to help us keep our head above water along the border.
Congressman, always appreciate the time. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
The roundtable is ready when we come back. All right, back now here with the roundtable. Bud Kennedy is from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Ashley Godot, political director at KVUE in Austin, and Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Bud, let's start with you here on this. The campaigns we have seen are being waged on TV news, but also online more than ever before.
Well, just as much on streaming now on YouTube. What's happened, we used to see all these Facebook campaigns. Facebook has played down politics, and more people watch YouTube now than any other social media. It's about the same as television. They found in Iowa, for example, 40–50% get their political information from either TV or YouTube, so it's useful. You cross from one county to another in Texas, the ads that come up when you go on YouTube are for that race. They switch races as you cross the county line. So it's targeted, it's local. You see on YouTube now and on TV these ads that have changed message, and they've spun because it turned out vouchers wasn't such a effective ad. So now those ads, by the way, Jason, they emphasize the border.
And Ashley, I guess the question is, if it works in Iowa, you can reach those same Texas voters here in this state as well, online and these streaming services.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that campaigns are really getting hip to by choosing to use those services instead is that you have to go to where the voters are. Particularly when we look at young voters and young Democratic voters, they have cut the cord. They're not watching TV. They're not watching cable. So you need to meet them where they are if you're going to get your message across to them, to try to get them motivated to show up to the polls. I think that's why you're seeing campaigns put more of an emphasis on those platforms.
And Bernadine, let's talk now about the first real test of the Crown Act here in Texas. A judge down in southeast Texas outside Houston and Barber Hills ruled that Barber Hills ISD did not violate the Crown Act by punishing a black student for the length of his locks. The student had his hair up, but still said that he couldn't show up to school or had to get it cut, right?
Well, you know what, quite frankly, Jason, I think that the judge made the right ruling in the sense that his hair was too long. Even if they were locks, if the locks did not reach the length was past that the school district's policy, he was not in the policy. But here's what my problem with this. Okay, what was wrong with allowing the student to style it on his head? That's the problem I had, which, how would they know how long his hair was if it's on top of his head unless they force him to take it down and measure it, which could be harassment. But I don't think that the school, in terms of suspending him or doing whatever they did with the length of it, I just wonder why they wouldn't let him restyle it.
Ashley, does this mean the Crown Act doesn't have as much teeth as once thought?
Well, I think this is one ruling. I want to take a step back, Jason, because I did not expect myself to disagree with Bernadine. We usually find ourselves on the same page, but, and I know this is probably going to sound very Austin of me, I think it is a little sexist to require boys and girls to have different rules when it comes to their hair in 2024. What are we trying to say about the length of a child's hair? I also think that, Bernadine and I are on the same page in that how he wears his hair was never down at school. His hair was always up. It was always tied up. It always was constricted to what the rules of the district are. And so it's a really surprising ruling.
Yeah, but quickly, the gender is not the issue here.
We are out of time. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate that. Thanks for watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics. Hope to see you there. Take care.